Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something right now. Why do most people stay broke? Why do so many live paycheck to paycheck, constantly worried about bills, stuck in survival mode while their dreams sit quietly in the corner gathering dust? It's not because they're lazy. It's not because they lack intelligence. It's because they've been conditioned to survive, not to thrive. From a young age, society teaches us the rules of the game. Go to school. Get good grades, get a job, work hard, pay bills, retire, hopefully. But nobody tells you that this game is rigged unless you learn how to think differently, unless you learn how to break free from that programming. See, being broke isn't just about not having money. It's a mindset, it's a pattern. It's the belief that wealth is only for the lucky few, that success is about external conditions, where you're born, who you know, what degree you have. Let me tell you something powerful. Those are excuses, and excuses are just lies you sell yourself to feel better about staying in the same place. Most people stay broke because they live in reaction, not creation. They respond to the world instead of shaping it. The alarm clock goes off, and they wake up already tired, not because they didn't sleep, but because they've been asleep their whole lives. They get up, go to a job they hate, come home drained, and numb themselves with distraction, TV, social media, junk food, just to forget that they're wasting the most precious gift they've been given, their time, their energy, their life. What separates those who stay broke from those who rise? It's not money, it's clarity, it's hunger, it's the decision to say, I'm done living small, I'm done blaming circumstances, I will take control of my life. Let me break it down for you. There are 3 reasons most people stay broke, and if you recognize any of them in your life, don't judge yourself. Use them as a mirror, as fuel. 1, they trade time for money, and stop there. Most people are taught to be employees. They clock in, they clock out. They earn just enough to survive, but never enough to build freedom. And even when they make a little more, they spend more. Why? Because they've been trained to live on the edge, to chase dopamine instead of discipline. But freedom doesn't come from a paycheck. It comes from leverage, from understanding that if you're not making money while you sleep, you'll work until you die. You need to build assets, skills, systems, businesses, passive income, something that keeps working even when you don't. 2, they fear growth more than they fear staying broke. Sounds crazy, right? But it's true. Most people are more comfortable in a familiar hell than an unfamiliar heaven, because growth requires pain. It demands sacrifice. You will lose friends. You will face judgment. You will doubt yourself. But listen to me. The pain of growth is temporary. The pain of regret is forever. You're not broke because you're incapable. You're broke because you haven't demanded more from yourself. You've chosen comfort over courage. You've chosen routine over reinvention, and that can change today. But it starts with a choice. 3, they don't understand the power of identity. Your bank account is a reflection of your standards, of what you believe you deserve. If deep down you see yourself as someone who always struggles, someone who never gets ahead, guess what? You'll subconsciously sabotage every opportunity that could change your life. Until you shift your identity, you will stay broke, no matter how many books you read or side hustles you start. You want to change your outer world, start with your inner world. Change how you speak to yourself. Change what you tolerate. Change the vision you hold for your future, because your life will never exceed your identity. So how do you break free? How do you stop living broke and start building wealth? Not just financially, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. It starts with ownership. The moment you say, I am 100% responsible for where I am, and 100% capable of changing it, everything shifts. That's power. That's the beginning of transformation. Then comes action. Don't just consume information, execute it. Learn a skill, start a business, save aggressively, invest wisely, build multiple streams of income. You don't need to do it all at once, but you do need to start. Next is environment. You cannot build a millionaire mindset in a poverty-driven circle. Surround yourself with people who challenge you, who inspire you, who are already where you want to be. Because proximity is power. If you're around 5 broke people, you'll be the 6th. If you're around 5 growing people, you'll rise too. And finally, purpose. Money by itself is empty. But when it's tied to a mission, a reason greater than yourself, it becomes a tool for impact. For freedom, for legacy, don't just aim to be rich. Aim to be free, to live life on your terms, to wake up excited, not exhausted, to serve others, not survive through the week. That's what real wealth is. That's what abundance feels like. You were not born to be broke. You were born with greatness in your bones, but greatness requires pressure. It requires decisions. It requires you to stop waiting for permission and start writing your own script. Most people stay broke because they never decide to be free. So today, decide to raise your standards. Decide to break the pattern. Decide that your story doesn't end with struggle. It begins with a breakthrough. Because your future self is watching, your family is watching, the world is waiting, and the question is, are you ready to rise? Most people stay broke because they trade time for money and stop there. This is the default path we've all been taught since childhood. Go to school, get a job, work hard, collect a paycheck, and repeat. It's a linear system, and it conditions you to believe that your value is tied to how many hours you can give. You're rewarded only when you show up, and the moment you stop working, the income stops too. This is the trap, exchanging your most precious asset, time, for a limited and often capped income. It keeps you stuck in a cycle where there's barely enough to cover expenses and never enough to build freedom. You can't build wealth if you're only earning from active effort. You can't buy your time back if your income depends entirely on you being present. And yet, this is where most people stay for their entire lives, working harder and longer without ever questioning the system. Trading time for money limits your ability to grow. There are only so many hours in a day, and only so much energy you can give. Eventually, you hit a ceiling physically, emotionally, and financially. And the sad part is, many people are stuck in jobs that don't inspire them, that drain their energy, and yet they stay because it's safe. But that safety is an illusion. It's comfort disguised as security. You can lose your job, your health, your ability to work. And if you've built nothing beyond that paycheck, you're left with nothing. True wealth isn't about working harder, it's about working smarter. It's about building systems that work even when you're not working. It's about creating value that exists beyond your presence. The people who rise out of being broke understand this difference. They don't stop at one stream of income. They learn how to multiply their value. They build businesses, invest in assets, acquire digital skills, create products, and leverage technology. They use their time to build something that pays them over and over again. They understand the power of ownership. When you own something, a business, an asset, a product, you control its growth. You're not just earning, you're building equity, you're building leverage, and leverage is the secret ingredient that separates the broke from the free. But most people never get to this point because they've been taught to chase hourly rates, to measure their life in shifts and schedules. They think having a high-paying job is enough, but even that comes with limits. A higher paycheck might give you nicer things, but it doesn't give you freedom unless you reinvest it into something scalable. The goal is to move from active income to passive income, from dependence to independence. You don't have to quit your job tomorrow, but you do need to start building something that doesn't need you 24/7. Even if it's small in the beginning, momentum compounds. What starts as a side hustle can become your escape route. What begins as an online product can become a full-time income. The key is to start seeing time as your seed, not your currency. Trading time for money alone keeps you in survival mode. It keeps you saying, I can't afford that, instead of how can I create the resources to make that happen. It keeps you choosing overtime instead of opportunity, And the longer you stay in that loop, the more you normalize it. You start believing that this is just how life is, but deep down you know there's more. You know there's a version of you that doesn't wake up dreading Mondays, a version that chooses how to spend each day. That version starts to come alive the moment you stop trading hours for dollars and start building value that outlives your effort. Comfort is more addictive than success, and that's why growth is feared. Most people don't fail because they aren't capable. They fail because they're comfortable being average. Comfort creates a trap that looks harmless, but is one of the most dangerous places a person can live in. It whispers, "You're doing fine," even when deep down you feel stuck. It convinces you to stay where you are because it's familiar, even if it's unfulfilling. The truth is, human beings are wired to avoid pain, but what they often miss is that growth always comes with discomfort. There is no transformation without challenge, no progress without pressure. But because comfort feels good in the moment, it becomes a drug. It soothes the fear, numbs the urgency, and hides the fact that you're standing still. People say they want to succeed, but when the time comes to make sacrifices, to work late, to feel rejected, to take risks, most retreat. They talk about goals, but their actions are guided by their desire to avoid discomfort. They fear embarrassment, judgment, failure, and so they settle. They want the rewards of success without paying the price for growth, but growth demands pain. It demands facing the parts of you that are weak and pushing through them. It demands giving up short-term pleasure for long-term power. Most won't do it, not because they can't, but because they won't leave the zone they've grown addicted to. Comfort creates false certainty. It tricks you into believing that staying the same is safe, but in reality, stagnation is riskier than any failure. The world moves with or without you. If you're not growing, you're shrinking. While you sit in your safe zone, others are stretching, learning, adapting, and becoming more valuable. That safe job, that familiar routine, that predictable income, it feels stable, but it's temporary. If you don't evolve, you eventually become replaceable. What once brought you comfort starts to feel like a prison. The walls don't close in all at once. They tighten slowly, silently, until one day you wake up and realize you've built a life around playing small. People often say they're stuck, but what they really mean is they're scared. They're scared of the unknown. They're scared of starting over. They're scared of leaving what they know, even if what they know is killing their dreams. Success requires you to walk into uncertainty. It requires you to do things you've never done. It requires you to fail, to learn, to get back up. But most people won't do that because they're not used to choosing pain. They're used to choosing easy. But easy never leads to greatness. Easy leads to mediocrity, and mediocrity, once accepted, becomes a lifestyle. It becomes your standard. It becomes your identity. Comfort demands no growth. It lets you stay exactly where you are and punishes you quietly. It's why people stay in toxic jobs, unfulfilling routines, and environments that shrink them. It's why dreams fade slowly, not with a bang, but with a silent compromise. One day you choose to stay quiet. One day you decide to wait a little longer. One day you convince yourself that someday is real, and one day becomes 1 year, and 1 year becomes a decade. Then you look back and realize you built a life around avoiding what made you uncomfortable. But what made you uncomfortable was the very thing that could have made you unstoppable. Growth doesn't feel good in the beginning. It feels awkward, painful, messy, but it is the only path to power. The fear you feel before making a move is not a sign to stop. It's a signal that you're about to do something different, something worth doing, something that stretches you. The people who win in life are not the ones who avoid discomfort. They are the ones who lean into it, who welcome it, who use it as a tool. They are not addicted to feeling good. They are addicted to becoming better. Your bank account is a reflection of your identity and standards. The way you see yourself directly impacts how you behave, what you tolerate, and what you attract. If you identify as someone who always struggles financially, you will unconsciously make decisions that keep you stuck in that struggle. It doesn't matter how many opportunities come your way. If your internal thermostat is set to lack, you'll find a way to return to lack. This is not about positive thinking. It's about identity wiring. Every action you take, every financial habit you form, stems from the beliefs you hold about who you are and what you deserve. If deep down you believe you're someone who never has enough, you will overspend, undercharge, or avoid responsibility for your finances. You will procrastinate on building skills, avoid investing, and settle for jobs that pay you less than you're worth. Your standards become the ceiling of your financial reality. Raise your standards and your results follow. But that change begins on the inside. Wealthy people don't just have different strategies, they have different identities. They see themselves as creators, as investors, as problem solvers. They don't think in terms of limitation, they think in terms of expansion. They expect to grow, to earn, to multiply. When you shift your identity, you begin to act differently. You stop tolerating being broke. You stop accepting financial chaos as normal. You start to demand more from yourself, not in a toxic way, but with ownership and pride. You begin to value your time more. You start setting boundaries. You spend with purpose, not emotion. You earn with intention, not survival. But none of that becomes consistent until your identity changes. If you believe you're only worth the bare minimum, that's what you'll keep creating. Many people try to change their financial life by changing their actions alone, without addressing the beliefs that drive them. It might work temporarily, but eventually they snap back. That's why people win the lottery and lose it. Why some people grow a business and then sabotage it. Why others save money for months and then blow it all in a week. Their identity isn't aligned with the new level of success. And until your identity aligns, you will reject the very things you say you want. The subconscious will always bring you back to what feels familiar, even if that familiarity is pain. Changing your financial identity is not a one-time decision. It's a process of rewiring. It starts with what you say to yourself every day. It shows up in the way you speak about money. If you constantly say, "I'm broke, I can't afford it, money doesn't grow on trees," you're reinforcing the identity of someone who struggles. But when you begin to affirm that you are capable, resourceful, deserving, and intelligent with money, your brain starts to look for proof of that. You begin to act like someone who takes control. You start managing your income. You learn how to grow it. You ask better questions. You connect with people on a higher level. You stop shrinking in rooms where wealth is discussed. Your financial standards are shaped by the environment you allow yourself to stay in. If you're constantly around people who complain, who settle, who make excuses, you'll mirror them. But if you're around people who think big, who invest in themselves, who operate with vision, you rise to meet them. Your environment is part of your identity. Upgrade your circle, and you start seeing yourself differently. When your identity grows, your decisions change, and when your decisions change, your results shift. The bank account doesn't change first. The self-image does. That's why lasting wealth is never just about strategies or side hustles. It's about who you believe you are and what level you believe you're worthy of operating at. If you're not making money while you sleep, you're working to survive, not to live. Relying solely on active income means your earning potential is always tied to your physical presence, your time, your energy. It means you have to keep showing up day after day just to keep the bills paid and the lights on. That model may offer short-term security, but it has no leverage, no scalability, and no freedom. As long as your income stops when you do, you're stuck in survival mode. You can't rest, you can't breathe, and you certainly can't build a life of abundance because you're always exchanging hours for dollars. The reality is, time is the most limited resource you have. You can't make more of it. Once it's gone, and if your only way of earning is by trading your time, then your income will always be limited. No matter how skilled or hardworking you are, there's a cap. You can't work 24 hours a day, and even if you could, you'd burn out. True financial power comes from creating systems, assets, and opportunities that generate income without demanding your constant attention. This is the principle behind passive income, money that flows in whether you're working, sleeping, traveling, or taking a break. People who understand this begin to shift how they use their time. Instead of working only for money, they start building things that continue to earn long after the work is done. They write books, create online courses, invest in stocks, start businesses, build digital products, rent properties, launch affiliate systems. These income streams may take effort to build up front, but once they are in place, they continue to pay dividends over time. It's not about overnight success, it's about strategic effort that creates long-term value. Passive income is not a fantasy, it's a decision to stop surviving and start designing a life that works for you instead of the other way around. Most people delay building passive income because they're too focused on the urgent, the job, the bills, the next paycheck. They believe they don't have time, but the truth is, they don't have a plan. You don't need 40 extra hours a week. You need consistency and vision. 1 hour a day spent building something scalable is more powerful than 10 hours working for someone else's dream. But because the results don't come immediately, most give up before the compound effect can kick in. They stay in the cycle of trading time for money, convincing themselves that someday they'll start building something more. But someday never comes unless you decide to make it today. Passive income doesn't mean you stop working. It means you shift from being the only engine to becoming the architect. You create systems that work for you, that grow with or without you. This is how you reclaim your time. This is how you buy back your life. Instead of being stuck in a job for 40 years, you create financial momentum that lets you live on your own terms. You get to choose how, when, and where you work. You get to spend time with your family, travel, invest in your health, and wake up without pressure. That's not luxury. It's freedom, and freedom should be the goal, not just money for money's sake. The people who win are the ones who understand leverage. Leverage means your effort produces more than what you put in. One video that earns for years, one product that sells 1,000 times, one investment that grows while you sleep. This is the mindset shift that separates the wealthy from the overworked. It's not about working harder. It's about working in ways that continue to give back. That's how wealth is built. Not just income, but a system of financial flow that doesn't depend entirely on your daily grind. Once you understand this, you stop asking how to make a quick buck and start asking how to build something that lasts. You will never escape being broke until you take full ownership of your life, as long as you keep pointing fingers at the economy, your job, your parents, your past. You're handing away your power. Blaming circumstances may feel justified, but it guarantees nothing changes. Ownership is the moment you stop waiting for someone to rescue you and realize no one's coming. It's not society's job to make you rich. It's not your employer's job to make you fulfilled. It's not your background's fault that you're behind. It's your responsibility now. Every decision, every habit, every excuse or action. It all adds up to the life you're living right now, and until you claim it, you can't change it. People stay broke because they've convinced themselves that the problem is outside of them. They wait for better opportunities, for a promotion, for the perfect time to start. They say things like, I can't catch a break, I didn't grow up with money, nobody helped me, and while all of that might be true, it's also irrelevant. You can't control where you started, but you can control where you go. Ownership is about saying, this is my life, these are my results, and if I don't like them, I will change them. Not hope, not wish. Decide, because once you take ownership, everything becomes possible. Without it, even the best advice, tools, and strategies are useless. The difference between someone who stays broke and someone who breaks through is mindset. Not talent, not luck, not connections. Mindset creates your decisions, and decisions create your outcomes. If your mindset is built around excuses, you'll find reasons why it's not your fault. If your mindset is built around responsibility, you'll find solution. You'll look for ways to learn, to grow, to pivot. You won't wait for motivation. You'll create discipline. You won't wait for help, you'll become resourceful. The most successful people in the world weren't handed their success. They earned it by owning everything, the good, the bad, the painful, the unfair, and using it to fuel their rise. Full ownership also means getting brutally honest about your habits. How you spend your time, what you do with your money, how you treat your health, who you surround yourself with, these are not random, they are choices, and if those choices are keeping you broke, it's your job to change them. Not tomorrow, not next year, now. Most people know what they need to do, but they're waiting to feel ready. They're waiting for the fear to go away, for the perfect moment, for life to calm down. But that moment never comes. The people who move forward are the ones who act anyway. Ownership doesn't wait for conditions to be perfect. It creates momentum through action, even when it's messy or uncertain. You will never change what you tolerate. If you tolerate chaos in your finances, if you tolerate lack of discipline, if you tolerate low standards, you will keep getting the same results. Ownership raises the bar. It says, I will no longer accept this level of life. And from that decision, you begin to shift. You make different choices. You cut out what no longer serves you. You commit to becoming the kind of person who handles their life with excellence, not perfection, but responsibility. You stop blaming, stop hiding, stop shrinking. You start building, learning, showing up even when it's hard. That's when you start earning differently, thinking differently, living differently. No one becomes wealthy by accident. It takes intention, focus, sacrifice, and courage. And none of that starts until you take ownership. Ownership means no more excuses, no more blame, no more waiting for things to change. It means becoming the author of your story instead of the victim in it. It means deciding that your past does not define your future, that where you are now is not where you have to stay, that no matter how unfair life has been, you still get to choose how you respond, how you grow, and what you create moving forward.